And it came to be on the Shabbat that when he went through grain fields, and his talmidim were plucking the heads of grain, and were eating, rubbing them in the hands. And some of the Pharisees said to them, Why are you doing what is not right to do on the Shabbat? And Yeshua answering them said, Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, he and those who were with him? How he went into the house of Yahweh, took and ate the showbread, and also gave some to those with him, which is not right for any but the Kohanim to eat. And he said to them, The ben of Adam is the dawn of the Shabbat. And it also came to be on another Sabbath that he entered into the congregation and taught. And there was a man whose right hand was withered. And the scribes and the Pharisees were watching him closely, whether he would heal on the Sabbath, for them to find an accusation against him. And he knew their thoughts, and said to the man who had the withered hand, Rise and stand in the midst. And he rose up and stood. Then Yeshua said to him, I ask you, is it right to do good on the Sabbath, or to do evil, to save life, or to destroy it? And looking around at them all, he said to the man, Stretch out your hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored sound as the other. They were filled with folly, and were speaking with one another what they should do to Yeshua. And in those days it came to be that he went out to the mountain to pray, and he was spending the night in prayer to Yahweh. And when it became day, he called near his talmidim, and chose from them 12, whom he also named emissaries, Shimon, whom he also named Kepha, and his brother Andri, Jacob and Yohanan, Philippus and Bartholomew, Matthias and Thomas, Jacob of Halef and Shimon, the one called the enthusiast, Yehuda of Jacob, and Yehuda from Keroth, who also became the betrayer. And coming down with them, he stood on a level place with a crowd of his talmidim and a great number of people from all Yehuda and Jerusalem, and from the coast country of Sor and Sidon, who came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And those who were troubled with unclean spirits, and they were healed, and all the crowd were seeking to touch him, for power went out from him and healing them all. And he, lifting up his eyes towards his talmidim, said, Baruch are the poor, because yours is the reign of Elohim. Baruch are you who hunger now, because you shall be satisfied. Baruch are you who weep now, because you shall laugh. And Baruch are you when men shall hate you, when they shall cut you off, and shall reproach you, and cast out your name as wicked, for the sake of the ben of Adam. Rejoice in that day, and leap for joy, for look, your reward is great in the Shamayim, for that is how their fathers treated the Nevi'im. But woe to you who are rich, because you are receiving your comfort. Woe to you who have been filled, because you shall hunger. Woe to you who are laughing now, because you shall mourn and weep. Woe to you, when all men speak well of you, for thus their fathers did to the false prophets. But I say to you who are hearing, love your enemies, do good to those hating you, barak those cursing you, and pray for those insulting you. And to him who hits you on the one cheek, offer the other also. And from him who takes away your outer garment, do not withhold the inner garment either. And give to everyone who asks of you, and from him who takes away what is yours, do not ask it back. And as you desire men should do to you, you also do to them in the same way. And if you love those loving you, what favor have you? For sinners too love those loving them. And if you do good to those doing good to you, what favor have you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to whom you expect to receive back, what favor have you? For even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much back. Rather love your enemies, and do good, and lend, expecting not in return. And your reward shall be great. You shall be sons of the Most High. Because he is kind to thankless and wicked ones. Therefore, be compassionate, as your Father also is compassionate. And do not judge, and you shall not be judged at all. Condemn not, and you shall not be condemned at all. Forgive, and you shall be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, and shaken together, and running over, shall be into your lap. For with the same measure with which you measure, it shall be measured back to you. And he spoke a parable to them. Is a blind able to lead a blind? Shall they not both fall into a pit? A Talmud is not above his teacher, but every one perfected shall be like his teacher. And why do you see the splinter in your brother's eye, but are not aware of the plank in your own eye? Or how are you able to say to your brother, Brother, let me take out the splinter that is in your eye, not seeing the plank in your own eye? Hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you shall see clearly to take out the splinter that is in your brother's eye. For a good tree does not yield rotten fruit, nor does a rotten tree yield good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For they do not gather figs from thorns, nor do they gather grapes from a bramble bush. The good man brings forth what is good out of the good treasure of his heart, and the wicked man brings forth what is wicked out of the wicked treasure of his heart. For out of the overflow of the heart his mouth speaks. But why do you call me Adonai, Adonai, and do not do what I say? Everyone who is coming to me, and is hearing my words, and is doing them, I shall show you whom he is like. He is like a man building a house, who dug deep and laid a foundation on the rock. And when a flood came, the stream burst against the house, but was unable to shake it, for it was founded on the rock. But the one hearing and not doing is like a man who built a house on the earth without a foundation, against which the stream burst, and immediately it fell. And the ruin of that house was great. And when he completed all his words in the hearing of the people, he went into Capernaum. And a certain captain's servant, who was valuable to him, was sick and about to die. And hearing about Yeshua, he sent elders of the Yehudim to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Yeshua, they begged him earnestly, saying, He is worthy for you to grant this to him. For he loves our nation, and has built the house of assembly for us. So Yeshua went with them. However, he was not far from the house, when the captain sent friends to him, saying to him, Adonai, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy that you should come under my roof. For this reason I did not even think myself worthy to come to you. But say a word, and my servant shall be healed. For I too am a man appointed under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to one, Go, and to another, Come, and he comes, and to my servant, Do this, and he does it. And when Yeshua heard this, he marveled at him, and turned around and said to the crowd that followed him, I say to you, not even in Israel have I found such a great belief. And those who were sent, returning to the house, found the servant who had been sick in good health. And it came to be the next day that he went into a city called Naim, and many of his Talmudim went with him, and a large crowd. And see, as he came near the gate of the city, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the city was with her. And when the Adon saw her, he had compassion on her, and said to her, Do not weep. And coming near, he touched the coffin, and those bearing it stood still. And he said, Young man, I say to you, arise. And he who was dead sat up and began to speak, and he gave him to his mother. And fear seized all, and they praised Elohim, saying, A great Nabi has been raised up among us, and Elohim has visited his people. And this news about him went out in all Yehudah, and all the neighborhood. And the Talmidim of Yochanan reported to him about all this. And Yochanan, calling 2 of his Talmidim near, sent to Yeshua, saying, Are you the coming one, or should we look for another? And coming to him, the men said, Yochanan the immerser has sent us to you, saying, Are you the coming one, or should we look for another? And in the same hour he healed many of disease and afflictions and wicked spirits, and he gave sight to many blind ones. And Yeshua answering said to them, Go, report to Yochanan what you have seen and heard. Blind receive sight, lame walk, lepers are cleansed, deaf hear, dead are raised. The good news is brought to the poor, and Baruch is he who shall not stumble in me. And when the messengers of Yochanan had left, he began to speak to the crowds concerning Yochanan. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? What did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft garments? Look, those who are splendidly dressed and living in luxury are in the houses of sovereigns. But what did you go out to see? A Nabi? Yes, I say to you, and more than a Nabi. This is he concerning whom it has been written, See, I send my messenger before your face, who shall prepare your way before you. For I say to you, among those born of women, there is not a greater Nabi than Yochanan the immerser. But he who is least in the reign of Elohim is greater than he. And all the people, even the tax collectors, when they heard, declared Elohim righteous, having been immersed with the immersion of Yochanan. But the Pharisees and those learned in the Torah rejected the counsel of Elohim for themselves, not having been immersed by him. And the Adon said, To what then shall I compare the men of this generation? What are they like? They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling to each other, saying, We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We lamentated for you, and you did not weep. For Yochanan the immerser came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and you say he is a demon. The Ben of Adam has come eating and drinking, and you say, Look, a man, a glutton, and a wine drunker, a friend of tax collectors and sinners, and wisdom is declared right by all her children. And one of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him. And he went into the Pharisee's house and sat down to eat. And see, a woman in the city who was a sinner, when she knew that Yeshua sat at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of perfume. And standing behind at his feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiping them with the hair of her head, and was kissing his feet and anointing them with the perfume. And when the Pharisees who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, This one, if he were a Nabi, would know who and what kind of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner. And Yeshua answering said to him, Simon, I have somewhat to say to you. And he said, Teacher, say it. A certain creditor had 2 debtors. The one owed 500 pieces of silver, and the other 50. And when they were unable to repay and forgive them both, which of them then shall love him more? Simon answering said, I suppose the one who he forgave more. And he said to him, You have rightly judged. And turning to the woman, he said to Simon, Do you see this woman? I came into your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has wetted my feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of her head. You gave me no kiss, but she has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she anointed my feet with perfume. Therefore I say to you, her many sins have been forgiven, because she loved much, but to whom little is forgiven, he loves little. And he said to her, Your sins have been forgiven. And those who were sitting at the table with him began to say among themselves, Who is this who even forgives sins? And he said to the woman, Your belief has saved you. Go in peace. You see? It is written.